Everybody, this is Linus from Wellness Woman 40 and Beyond e-magazine, and welcome to the Wellness Woman Show. I'm so glad that you're listening or looking, whichever one it is today. It's great to be with you. You know, the last couple of weeks has been a whirlwind. Ever since Thanksgiving, I've had all kinds of guests and company in my home, and it's been really hard for me to get a chance to spend some time with you. So I'm glad that I'm back, and I'm back with a great topic that I think is perfect for the holidays. First of all, you know I believe that midlife does not mean no life. Just because we're aging doesn't mean that we still can't have fun and do stuff, okay? And we're going to be talking about that today. We're going to be talking about midlife dating, what it's like, things to look out for. And I have with us an expert, so to speak, in midlife dating. I'm saying she's an expert because she actually wrote a book about it, Midlife Joyride. And it's a light-hearted yet meaningful collection of stories on advice and encouragement when it comes to dating in midlife. And I have with us Hope, J. Hope Suis.
That's right. Yep.
Okay, great. She's an inspirational writer and a relationship coach that has over 25 years of experience as a single parent and dating and relationships, and a phrase that she coined as solitary refinement. I love that. Thanks so much for joining us on the Wellness Woman Show. It's great to have you. And, you know, first of all, you've got to share your story as to how you decided to write this book. It's a great book, by the way. I've read it and I love it. But how did you come to write it, and why are you so passionate about the idea of helping others when it comes to midlife dating and also parenting as a single person?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show and talk to you and your listeners. It started just basically really on a whim. I have been single since my very early 30s. I was divorced twice by my early 30s, and I got a little discouraged. I was like, okay, I've done this wrong, so I needed to revamp and rethink and redo some things. And then I just got busy with life and raising the kids. And a couple of years ago, through all that time, though, I did do some dating. I was doing online dating when it really wasn't cool to do online dating. And so throughout the years, I just, had a lot of experiences. I learned a lot of things to do, not to do. And a couple of years ago, I just decided that, after my kids were gone, I had a little bit more time. I started a blog, and it originally, I called it The Struggle is Real, because at the time, that's how I felt, that it kind of was a struggle. But I did eventually move over to Hope Boulevard. So my middle name is Hope. It means a lot to me, that word and the concept behind it. So I renamed my blog Hope Boulevard. I started a Hope Boulevard website. And through the support of the people that read it and the comments that I got from it, I just kept going with it. And it just kind of evolved into the book. I belong to a great circle of single friends in midlife like myself. I got a lot of their stories. All the stories in the book are true stories. And so I just put it all together, and I just called it Midlife Joyride, because that's what it is. I'm having a ball. A lot of my friends are. It's not always great every day. We still do have, struggles and obstacles, but it's still a really good ride.
Well, I think that's true in anyone's life. We all have challenges, and many times it's all in how we decide to encode the word of the world, how we decide to interpret those experiences. We can always look at the negative stuff and pull out all the negative stuff, or you can take a look at maybe the key learnings and have a positive twist to it. I was just listening to Gabrielle Bernstein not too long ago on the Oprah's show. I think it was one of her soul sessions at UCLA. And she was talking about how she has decided to look at problems and obstacles and challenges no longer that way. Instead, she looks at them as opportunities and detours to really take you to where it is you're supposed to be going in the first place. And sometimes if something's not working, or if it's not a pleasant experience, maybe you're not supposed to be going down that road. Maybe you are supposed to go somewhere else. And maybe we just need to open ourselves up to not so much thinking about the destination, but the journey itself and what you learn along your way. So in terms of your dating and all of that, first of all, What is it that you wanted people to get from the book when they're reading it? What is it you're hoping that they will learn?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I want people to know that, arriving in midlife and finding yourself single is really generally not where we think that we're going to end up. Most of us do think that when we're younger that we're going to find someone, we're going to be married, we're going to stay married, we're going to have the kids and the grandkids and the holidays and the vacations, and to wake up one day and find that we're all alone in midlife can be just devastating. So the first thing I wanted to get across to people is that, I call them Sims, single in midlife, and it's one of the largest growing demographics in the U.S. So there's a whole lot of us out there. So you don't need to feel alone. You don't need to feel like no one else is going through this, because there are millions of us out there. And the other thing, I don't want people to get discouraged and depressed and think their life is over because it's too late to do something, or you're too old, or you're too this, or you're too that, because that's just simply not true. And then I do give some very specific guidelines for online dating and relationship rules. Some things don't ever change regardless of your age, but there are some things maybe a little bit more specialized or whatever for our group. And the last part of the book I just entitled Relationship You, because the reality is there are some people who are not interested in another long-term relationship, or they just haven't found one yet. And I met a lady this weekend who just said, you know what, I am so happy with the way I am right now, that she just thought, I just may stay single the rest of my life. And that's perfectly okay too. But there's a whole section on how to embrace and reinvest in yourself and reinvent yourself at this time of your life, and discover things that you may never even thought you would enjoy doing. I know a couple of years ago, just before I turned 50, I did my very first paintball tournament, and I can promise my children thought I had lost my mind. But I had fun. I was actually much better at it than I thought I would be. And, it was something that I probably never would have thought I would have done. But I did, and it was great. So I just
That's
encourage
funny
people to
that you
do
mentioned
that.
that, because that's something that my girlfriend and I want to do for her birthday. We're going
There
to
you go.
go play paintball. And another thing I want to do is do laser tag. And, it's interesting because I had this conversation today with my 30-year-old, as we shared last time we talked. I have 4 daughters, and you have 2 daughters, I believe, right?
Yes,
And they're
yes.
both, in the very early stages of their adulthood, around dating and marriages and all that other kind of stuff. It's so funny. I always call the 20s and the 30s the hair on fire stage, because everything is, So I was talking to her, and she was saying, Mom, I've decided that since I don't have a primary relationship, that I'm going to make the focus really getting to know me and being happy with that, and not spending time worrying about, when am I going to get married? When am I going to have kids? When am I going to find, the perfect life? She said, actually, I should just really invest in living my best life now. And I said,
Absolutely.
yes, I'm so glad you are learning that now. That's so important, because I really felt in order to have a successful relationship, if that's your goal, you really need to get to know you anyway. And so many times we as women just don't get a chance to do that for whatever reason. I don't think we're really oriented that way. We're so busy giving of
Right.
ourselves all
Well,
the time.
right. Well, we're nurturers by nature, and most of us are actually, trained and brought up to be nurturers. And from the time we meet someone and then have children, most of our entire lives are revolve around what we can do for someone else.
That's true. And also, many times we allow our validation to be placed on something outside of ourselves, when in reality, we really need to be our own validation. And of course, because I'm a Christian, I'll say God is my ultimate validation. He tells me, whatever you call it, the universe, the Holy Spirit, the rock, I don't know.
Right.
There's something greater than you and I believe, that can guide us. But getting back to that midlife dating, what was it like when you finally decided it was time for you to get out and start dating again? Where did you find the courage? I mean, some women, they want to, but they don't want to.
Well, I mean, you do kind of have to commit to the process because it's not, I mean, there are stories out there of somebody sending one email to one person and they live happily ever after, but that's not the norm. There, you have to weed through a lot of emails, you have to weed through a lot of profiles. You have to talk to a lot of people that maybe you really don't want to talk to. But so you have to be committed to the process and understand that it may not happen as quickly as you want it to happen. But if you are specific about what you want and know what you want and specific about going about how to ask for what you want, then it certainly, is possible to find someone. And, you know, I don't know that I had to summon up too much courage because, it's just really honestly, I've done it, throughout the years all along. But I do know for someone, especially that's been in maybe a 2-decade marriage that ended, that it can be very daunting and very overwhelming to pull up a search profile on an online dating app and just go, whoa, there's just way too much out there. So,
Well, let's
and
talk
to just
about
set it
that.
back down.
Let's talk about that. I know you give some tips on what kinds of things to look for on the profile, and also when looking at other people's profiles, but also what kinds of things you want to do when it comes to writing your own profile. What are some of the tips you can share with us when it comes to the kinds of things you need to be doing when you're filling out these
Sure.
online profiles?
Well, the first thing I always say is just be honest, because the number one thing that will turn someone off is if you do this great, wonderful profile, but it turns out that it's not true, or most of it's not true. You
Right.
need to always use current pictures. Pictures from 10 years ago is not going to cut it. It doesn't matter. You don't have, I mean, we're all in, if you're looking for in the midlife age range, no one expects us to look like we're 25, but they do expect when they meet you to look like your picture.
Right. Right.
So you need to use current pictures. You need to use more than one. You need, because I mean, just a square, facial shot really is not enough to get an overall sense. And whether we like it or not, we do need to be attracted to the person that we, intend to date. And attraction comes in all shapes and forms. There's not, there's not just one type of being attractive, but you do, like I say, you need to be honest. You need to have more than one picture. Pictures of doing stuff that you like to do, that you enjoy doing. I do not approve or suggest that you put children in your pictures. It's just a
Mm.
personal thing I have. I
Right.
don't like that.
Mhm.
Um, and I think you should be specific about what you're looking for. If you want a long-term relationship, then I think that you should put that. I mean, no one expects it to happen on the first date, but if that's what you want, then that's what you need to be upfront about it. If you're just looking for someone to hang out, one Saturday night a month to hit, the movies and, dinner, then you're just looking for something casual, and that's fine too, but be honest about that as well. And on the flip side, when you're looking at profiles, you need to pay attention to what they're saying. If they don't have more than one picture, if they or don't have if they don't take the time to invest in doing a profile that tells you a little bit about them, what they're looking for, maybe a little bit of their journey. You don't necessarily need to write a autobiography, but you do
Mhm.
need to have a little bit of information. If they don't bother to do that, they're not going to bother too much with you either. If they're not going to invest time into making a
Mm.
presentable profile, they're not going to invest time in you either. So you shouldn't give too much time a day to someone who's not really committed to putting in a good profile. And the other thing I think is very important is negativity, because there
Mm.
are a lot of profiles, both men and women, that will say stuff like, where have all the good men gone? Or looking for a good-hearted woman, or I can't believe this is all there is. And, when you start off with that kind of negativity, the person, they're either not ready for a relationship, or they're so hurt and bitter that they're not really able to receive love right now. And that's, it doesn't make them a bad person,
No.
but it probably does make them unavailable emotionally, and they're probably not a good pick. So, I mean, you should really look for someone who does have a positive and open attitude about looking for a relationship again.
Okay, so I'm on the internet and I found someone that I'm kind of interested in. I sent an email. We've emailed back and forth maybe for a week. Is it time for me to meet him in person?
Oh, absolutely. I generally don't think that you should, you don't need to go emails. In fact, that's one thing that the men typically will complain about the most is a woman will want to email weeks and weeks and weeks before agreeing to meet. And I mean, the idea is to hang out and to get to know somebody, because you can have a great email conversation. You can even have a great phone conversation. But until you sit across the table from somebody, you don't know if there's a connection, and there's no need to waste everybody's time if that's not really what you want to do. So yes, within a week, you should be able to set up a time. Obviously, there's circumstances, work, some people work out of town, whatever, but within a short period of time, you should be able to meet. Now, there are some people, I like to do a meet and greet in like an hour's time. And I know there's some people who think that you should at least invest 2 or 3 hours, but I don't necessarily agree with that, because again, until you're with them face to face, you don't know what your reaction is going to be, what their reaction is going to be to you. So a lunch hour meeting, or a meeting right after work, for about an hour, just to, and then, if it goes great, you can extend it, or you can do it again. You can meet again. But if you go into it, I call it a meet and greet. If you go into it and there's a small amount of time, you only have an hour that you have to make small talk and size the person up, and they're doing the same to you.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of that hour, if you have time, you can move on. And if you don't, and you're not interested, you've got your out, because you've already set the time limit. And
Okay, now there you go. That's another reason. That's another thing that many women get shy about, or get literally kind of a little bit afraid about it, is you get there, you see the guy, you exchange a handshake, have a 5-minute conversation, and you're thinking, oh God, this is not what I'm interested in. How can I get out of this? How do you get out of that? How do you kind of...
Well, first of all, I want to tell you a story, because there was, I hear all of the time about, men that complain about women not looking like their pictures. So there was, it was several years ago, and I had talked to somebody, and we made an agreement to meet right after work. And about 3 o'clock, I started feeling really badly. I mean, like really ill. And I really did not feel like meeting this guy. But I was afraid if I called it off, he would think I was, not interested. I wouldn't hear from him anymore. So I said, okay, I'll go. I'll meet him. And, he'll see that I look terrible. I'm, really sick, and we'll reschedule. So I go, we're meeting at this Mexican restaurant, and I'm sitting at one of those high top tables, and, and this guy walks up to me, and I don't feel good anyway. So I'm certainly not up to talking to a stranger. So this guy walks up and, starts talking to me. And then I'm like, okay, this is not what I need for my date to walk in, see me talking to another guy, and he's going to leave anyway. And so, I'm frantic, and I'm like, okay, how am I going to get rid of this guy? And as it turns out, he keeps talking, and he is the guy. He is the date that I'm waiting for. He looked so much different from what his picture. I did not recognize him at all. I thought he was a complete stranger. So, wow. It is possible to have that happen. But in response to your question, if you do set up for a meet and greet for like 45 minutes to an hour, we're adults. We can handle a 1 hour conversation. Now, if they're creepy, if there's something really wrong and you're getting this really creepy vibe, you can do anything. You can go, oh my goodness, I just got a text, I have to leave. You can do anything at that point. But for the most part, if you just really don't think you're going to like the person, you can tough it out for 45 minutes,
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then you can just say, and it is difficult. It is very, very difficult to look somebody in the eye and say, you know what, I don't really think this is a match for me. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you. And, good luck going forward.
Let's do,
But you don't necessarily have to do it at that
right.
point. You can wait
Mhm.
until you get home and send an email. You do need to do it. It's
Right.
not fair to them if you're not honest, but it is difficult to do it eye to eye. I will.
Yeah. And the holidays are coming up. You got holiday parties going on and opportunities perhaps to meet other people and possibly find someone that you might want to get to know better. But if that doesn't happen during the holidays, what kinds of things can you share with our listeners who are struggling through the holidays at this time and thinking about having a significant other, being in relationships, and really kind of in some ways, in cases, maybe feeling a little bit sorry for themselves? How can we
Sure.
move ourselves out of that?
Well, as it turns out, I just did a blog post today called "Don't Be a Self on a Shelf," and
I like that.
tips for having a enjoyable single holiday season.
Great.
It is a very difficult season to be single, and in fact, I was doing some research, and it's more difficult for singles. Typically to get through the holiday season than it actually is Valentine's Day. And I guess a lot of that's because the holiday season is such a long time too. But the lights, the music, the presents, just I mean every time you turn on the TV, there's an "Every Kiss Begins with K" commercial, and it's
Yeah.
just everywhere you look. So it can be, if you find yourself alone, but it's important to keep things in perspective. Um, it is, there are so many other things to be thankful for and to be blessed with. Family and friends. You should go to parties if you want to. You don't have to have a date. You can grab a friend, a girlfriend, and go. I've been to, outings with my daughters. You don't have to, it's great if you're brave enough and self-confident enough to go. If you know other people there, go by yourself. You don't have to have a date. You might meet someone, you might not. You might just have a great time. And if you're out there having a great time and you're not self-conscious about, your single status, then your overall persona is just going to be more confident and more open to having someone, approach you, talk to you, want to get to know you. It's also, get outside of ourselves, volunteer, do some help. Um, there's missions, there's food banks, there's churches, there's so many opportunities to help someone less fortunate, and it just gets us out of our own way sometimes to be helpful to other people. And some days, you know what? It's okay to just not do anything. If you have a day where it's just, I don't feel like doing life today, then, or an evening and you want to curl up and watch a good movie or, hang out with just, a friend or two. It's, you don't have to be out in the hustle and bustle every day just to prove to the world you're okay. So
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm having fun.
that's right. That's right. So it's okay to have some downtime too. But, spending time with family and friends, going to visit, reconnecting with people that, that you only, um, can do this time of year to, so, I mean, there are a lot of things that you can do to help. But there may be days when you just feel bad, and
Well, and, I wanted to say that too, because I really do believe that one of the reasons why I had an anxiety disorder that, I don't have it anymore, but I had to try a lot of different things. And one of the things that I tried while I was going through a process of taking a look at dealing with it holistically was to go ahead and allow myself to feel whatever I was feeling. Lean
right.
into it and allow myself to feel. And then after I allowed myself to feel for a day or 30 minutes or whatever it was, then say, okay, that's the worst it can get. I've allowed myself to feel it. Time for me to move on from there. And that really worked after a while, because I began to realize that when I felt that way, what it was going to the worse I could feel, because I've felt it before. And it's not to be afraid of, because sometimes if we try to avoid it, it's like the pink elephant in the room. That's all you can think about. Where you can say, okay, I see the pink elephant, it's there, so what? You know, I'm depressed right now, or I'm, you know, still sad about the breakup of my relationship. This is how I'm feeling. I'm going to have a good cry, and then afterwards, I'm going to do something.
Right.
I think many times when you go ahead and allow yourself to feel what you're feeling, it's a lot easier to get to the other side of it. And then the other thing, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Well, I was going to say there's a section in the book that I've got under the divorce chapter called "Lick Your Wounds," and it talks about how in the animal kingdom that there's an enzyme in the saliva that is actually promotes healing. So, I mean, we've all seen that with cats and dogs, and but you know, they get hurt or they get wounded, and they, you know, and they lick the wound, and it promotes healing. Well, as it turns out, that tears carry that same enzyme. So, in a literal and a figurative sense, tears are healing to our hearts and to our minds. And the other thing that I brought out is that the healing comes from within us. You know, it doesn't come from an outside source. Of course, obviously, you know, there's spiritual help and stuff, but I mean, the help, the healing that comes from within us as we search our hearts and search our souls and learn from the mistakes. But I just thought it was really interesting that tears do have a very healing effect.
Well, they always say, you know, that idea of having a good cry.
Right.
That's why, one of the reasons, I guess, why it's good, because it is really healing. And it's interesting, when you begin to approach life from a holistic standpoint in terms of, you know, mind, body, and spirit, and caring, you know, for that piece, mind, body, and spirit, it makes such a big difference in terms of how you view everything. You don't get quite as myopic. I know that one of the things we like to talk about in this show is, you know, the things you can do to, you know, revive your mind, the things you can do to renew your spirit, and the things you can do to re-energize your body. And I believe that relationship wellness, just like any other kind of wellness, is just as important as anything else. And that's why I thought that it was so great to have you on the show today, because I really do believe that your book will help so many people kind of get past that point and to realize that, first of all, they're not alone, and that there are things that they can do right now today to feel better about being single. And thank you so much. And again, where can people find your book, Midlife Joyride?
Well, I do have, it is on Amazon. And it's, you can look it up under Midlife Joyride. There is a hyphen between mid and life if you are searching it under Amazon. There is also a link on my website that takes you straight to the book, and my website is hopeboulevard.com, and that also links to my blog.
Oh, that's fantastic. Hope, thank you so much for joining us on the Wellness Woman Show. It's been great to have you.
Thank you so much. I've had a ball. Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you to all of you. Boy, we are now in the season, and now you guys know what you need to be doing to have a fantastic single life, if that's what you choose during your midlife process for the holidays. And next week, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, which is how to distress the mess for the holidays. I've got some tips for you next week on what you can do to have a wonderful and fantastic holiday without stressing out. My name is Linus, and I am a holistic wellness and holistic living expert. It's been wonderful to have you, and we'll see you again next time.